My in-laws announced at my wedding that my husband had a secret child. You should know the truth before you say I do. My mill sneered. My husband turned pale. I pulled out my phone. Actually, I do know, I said, playing the recording of their plan to sabotage the wedding. The room fell silent. I had dreamed of this day since I was a little girl. The ivory lace of my dress, the scent of fresh roses in the air, the way the sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of the chapel. Everything was perfect, almost too perfect. As I stood at the altar, fingers entwined with my soon-to-be husband's, my heart pounded, not with doubt, but with sheer happiness. Nathan, my fiancé, looked breathtaking in his tailored suit, his dark hair slightly tousled, his hazel eyes filled with something that almost looked like nervous excitement. I should have seen it then. The way his grip tightened ever so slightly. The way he avoided looking at the front pews where his family sat. The way my mother-in-law, Evelyn, wore a smug little smirk instead of the usual soft expression mothers have at their son's wedding. Then, just as the officiant was about to ask the fateful question, "Do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Evelyn stood, loudly, dramatically, like we were in the middle of some soap opera, and she was a star. "You should know the truth before you say I do," she announced, her voice cutting through the ceremony like a blade. The room went dead silent. A few gasps. My mother's face paled. Nathan's grip went from firm to ice cold. I turned my head slowly, my veil shifting as I met her gaze. She was smiling, but not the warm, motherly smile you'd expect at a wedding. No, this was the kind of smile you give when you know you've won. "Nathan has a child," she continued, dragging out the words like she was savoring them. "A secret child. He's been hiding it from you." My stomach lurched. Whispers erupted through the pews. My father was already on his feet, his face stormy. Nathan, on the other hand, turned ghostly white. I exhaled slowly, feeling my pulse thunder in my ears. Then I did what nobody expected. I smiled. "Actually," I said, reaching for my phone, "I do know." I tapped the screen and pressed play. Evelyn's voice crackled to life. "Wait until the vows. She'll be humiliated, and Nathan will have no choice but to come crawling back." My soon-to-be sister-in-law's voice followed, hesitant but clear. "Mom, are you sure this is the right way? What if it backfires?" "Oh, don't be stupid, Meredith. That girl is naive. She'll break down in front of everyone. She'll leave, and then we can fix Nathan's mess." Silence. A crushing, suffocating silence. Every eye in the room snapped back to Evelyn. Her face was drained of color. Nathan took a step back, staring at his mother in shock. You planned this?" His voice cracked. Evelyn opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, but no words came out. I turned to the officiant, my heart pounding in my chest. "Would you mind giving us a moment?" I asked sweetly. His startled nod was the last thing I saw before I turned back to Evelyn, lifting my chin. "You wanted to ruin my wedding?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "Congratulations. You just ruined yourself instead." The guests murmured. The scandal was out, and I had just declared war. The weight of the moment pressed down on the chapel like a storm cloud ready to burst. No one moved. No one spoke. The recording still echoed in the air, a ghost of Evelyn's venom hanging between us. I turned to Nathan, watching his face carefully. His hands trembled at his sides, his throat bobbing as he swallowed hard. He looked like a man trapped in quicksand, sinking deeper with every second. "You knew about this?" My voice was quiet, but the accusation burned. His head jerked up. "No, I swear I didn't. Did you lie to me?" I didn't lie," he stammered. "I just—" Evelyn lunged forward. "Enough." Her voice snapped like a whip. "This is absurd. That recording proves nothing." She let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "You're really going to humiliate our family over some silly misunderstanding?" I met her gaze. Unflinching. "Misunderstanding," I echoed. "You plotted to ruin my wedding." Evelyn's lips pressed into a thin line, but her eyes burned with something darker. A flicker of panic. I could feel the guest stares boring into us. My parents looked furious, my father already halfway out of his seat like he was restraining himself from marching up the aisle and throwing Evelyn out. Then my best friend, Lila, stood from the bridesmaids' row. Her arms crossed over her sequin dress, and her voice dripped with pure disdain. "So, just to be clear," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "you planned to humiliate your own son on his wedding day, just so you could manipulate him into leaving his fiancée." Evelyn turned to her, jaw tightening. "Stay out of this." Lila smirked. "Oh, honey," she purred. "I'm just getting started." A few guests murmured in agreement. I could see the tide shifting. The perfect, polished image Evelyn had always projected was cracking, the ugliness underneath bleeding through. But she wasn't done fighting. Not yet. She turned to Nathan, eyes glistening. The tears weren't real. I knew that, but damn, she was a good actress. "Nathan," she whispered, voice trembling. "Please, I was just trying to protect you. I did this for you." His face twisted, conflicted. "Mom, you don't belong with her." Evelyn pressed. her voice growing desperate. You know that. She's controlling you. That's enough. Nathan's voice was quiet, but there was something in it. Something final. Evelyn's mouth snapped shut. I'm done, he said, shaking his head. I'm so tired of this. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling shakily. You've done this my whole life. Controlled me, manipulated me, and I let you, because I thought you loved me. His voice cracked. But this is too far. Evelyn took a step forward. Sweetheart, no, his tone hardened. You're not my priority anymore. She is. He turned to me, eyes pleading. If you'll still have me. I studied with him. The hurt in his expression, the betrayal, the weight of everything crashing down on him at once. Did he know about the child? Did he lie to me? I didn't have those answers. Not yet. But one thing was clear. Evelyn had lost control. And she knew it. Her face twisted, rage flickering in her eyes. You're making a mistake, she spat. No, I said, my voice calm. He's finally making a choice. A muscle in her jaw twitched. She turned on her heel, stalking toward the exit, her heels clicking furiously against the marble floor. But just before she reached the doors, she paused. And when she looked back over her shoulder, I saw something that sent a chill down my spine. She wasn't defeated. She was planning her next move. Evelyn left the chapel with her head high, but I knew better. She wasn't retreating. She was regrouping, calculating her next attack. The weight of her destruction still hung in the air. Guests whispered in hushed tones, their gazes flicking between me and Nathan like we were a live scandal playing out in real time. My mother looked livid. My father, tense. Lila was ready to throw hands. But I was waiting. Nathan turned to me, hands slightly raised like he was bracing for impact. I didn't know, he said quickly, desperately. I swear, I didn't know she was planning that. I believed him. That much was clear. But that didn't mean I was letting him off easy. I took a slow breath, keeping my voice steady. But do you have a child? The question hung between us like a dagger. Nathan's face crumpled. And in that moment, I knew. Oh God, he wasn't lying. My stomach twisted as I took a step back. You do. I didn't know until recently. He rushed out, his voice raw. I dated someone years ago. We broke up, and she never told me. She only reached out a few months ago. My breath hitched. You were going to tell me? My voice was barely above a whisper. Yes, he said instantly. I want to find the right time. His hands curled into fists, frustration bleeding into his features. But I should have told you sooner. I know that. I searched his face, looking for cracks for dishonesty. I found none. But that didn't mean the damage wasn't already done. My mind raced. This changed everything. There was a child in the picture now. A whole person. And Evelyn. Evelyn had known. She had waited until the perfect moment to weaponize it against us. Nathan raked a hand through his hair, exhaling shakily. Say something. I swallowed hard. Who is she? The mother? I nodded. His jaw tightened. Her name is Cassandra. The name rang no bells, but the way he said it, carefully like stepping around broken glass, told me everything. And the child? I asked. A boy, he said softly. Leo. The room around us had faded. The guests. The whispers. The ruined ceremony. Right now, it was just me and Nathan, standing in the wreckage of what was supposed to be our perfect day. You should have told me, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I know. His voice cracked. I closed my eyes for a moment, inhaling deeply before opening them again. Did Evelyn know about him before you did? Nathan hesitated, and that hesitation was my answer. I clenched my jaw. How long? He looked away. She knew for months. Months. She had known for months and never told him. Never told me. Because she had been waiting for this. Nathan's Adam's apple bobbed. I should have told you the second I found out. Yes, you should have. But right now, there was a bigger problem. Evelyn. She wasn't the kind of person to walk away quietly. She was the kind of person who set fires on her way out. And if she had already spent months digging into this, I had no doubt she was planning something worse. I turned to Lila. Find out where she's going. Lila nodded without hesitation, already pulling out her phone. Nathan frowned. What are you? Your mother just lost a battle, I said, gripping my bouquet tightly. But she's planning her next move. Nathan inhaled sharply, realization dawning in his eyes. This wasn't over. Not even close. And if Evelyn wanted war, she was about to get one. Lila worked fast. By the time we left the chapel, she had already tracked Evelyn down. She just pulled out of the parking lot, she muttered, eyes glued to her phone, headed toward the city. I exhaled sharply. She's not running away. She's planning something. Nathan rubbed his temple, looking exhausted. What could she possibly do now? The whole wedding just saw what she did. Lila scoffed. You're underestimating her ability to play the victim. She was right. Evelyn wouldn't disappear. She would twist the narrative. Make me the villain. Make Nathan the poor, manipulated son who needed rescuing. I had no intention of letting that happen. Nathan turned to me, his expression torn between guilt and determination. What do we do? I held his gaze. We get ahead of her. We drove in silence, following Evelyn's trail through the city. The tension in the car was suffocating, but my mind was racing too fast to focus on that. Leo, the child Nathan never knew he had. Somewhere out, there was a little boy with his eyes. A boy who had been hidden from him, just like Evelyn had tried to hide it from me. And Cassandra, the ex who had dropped this bombshell. What role did she play in this? Has she been manipulated too? Or is she part of Evelyn's game? I clenched my fists. I needed answers. Lila's voice snapped me out of my thoughts. She just pulled into an apartment complex. She pointed out the window as we slowed to a stop across the street. Nathan stiffened. I know this place. I turned to him sharply. Why? He swallowed. It's where Cassandra lives. Everything inside me went still. Of course. Of course. Evelyn was going straight to her. If she couldn't control Nathan, she would go through the mother of his child instead. I pushed the car door open, adrenaline surging through me. We're stopping her. The lobby of the apartment complex was quiet. Too quiet. The receptionist barely glanced at us as we made our way to the elevators. Nathan looked uneasy. Are we just going to barge in? I pressed the button. She didn't hesitate to barge into our wedding. The elevator dinged. We stepped inside, and Lila pressed the floor number. Nathan shifted beside me. I don't even know what to say to Cassandra. You'll figure it out. The doors slid open. We stepped into the hallway, just as Evelyn's voice rang out from behind a door down the corridor. I was tense. She was already here, already working her poison. Nathan clenched his jaw. Let's go. He knocked. Silence. Then, slowly, the door creaked open. And there she was. Cassandra. She was beautiful. Soft brown eyes, high cheekbones, a face that had once meant something to Nathan. But there was exhaustion in her gaze, wariness. Her eyes flicked between us before landing on Nathan. What are you doing here? She asked. Nathan hesitated. We need to talk. A scoff came from inside the apartment. Then, Evelyn stepped into view. Her lips curled into a satisfied smirk. You're too late, she purred. Cassandra already knows the truth. My stomach twisted. What truth? Cassandra exhaled, arms crossing over her chest. That I made a mistake reaching out to him. Nathan's face paled. What? Evelyn's eyes gleamed. Oh, sweetheart, she crooned, placing a hand on Cassandra's shoulder. You didn't really think you could just walk back into his life and play happy family, did you? Nathan took a step forward, his whole body tight with tension. Cassandra, what did she tell you? Cassandra hesitated. Evelyn's nails dug into her shoulder. And that's when I saw it. The fear in her eyes. The hesitation. She wasn't standing by Evelyn because she wanted to. She was standing by her because she was afraid. I inhaled sharply, stepping forward. What did she thr-8 you with? Evelyn's smirk faltered. Excuse me. Cassandra's lips parted slightly, her throat working. Nathan turned to her, voice softening. Cass, if there's something she's holding over you, tell us. Please. Cassandra's gaze flicked to Evelyn. Evelyn's fingers twitched against her arm. I saw it then. The panic. The loss of control. She had something. Something on Cassandra. I turned to Evelyn, my own smirk forming. You just made your final mistake. Evelyn's nostrils flared. You don't know what you're talking about. I took another step closer. You came here thinking you could turn Cassandra against Nathan. Thinking you could manipulate her the same way you manipulated your son. I tilted my head. But you underestimated one thing. Her lips pursed. I smiled. You're not the only one who knows how to play dirty. Evelyn went rigid. Cassandra sucked in a sharp breath. And just like that, the tides shifted. Evelyn's face twisted, her usual smugness flickering into something sharp. Cold. For the first time, she looked uncertain. I took another step forward, my voice steady. What did you tell her? Cassandra's gaze darted between us. Fear still clung to her expression, but there was something else now. Hope. Like she was waiting for permission to speak the truth. Evelyn's fingers dug into Cassandra's arm. Don't listen to her, she hissed. She just wants to turn you against me. Oh, the irony. Nathan took a deep breath, his voice softer now. Cassandra, he said, stepping closer. Please, if she's thr-ed you, if she's holding something over you, we can help. Cassandra's lips parted, her throat working as if she wanted to speak. But Evelyn saw it too, and she panicked. She's lying. Evelyn snapped, her grip tightening. She doesn't care about you, Cassandra. She just wants control over Nathan. Enough. The voice that cut through the air wasn't mine. It wasn't Nathan's. It was Cassandra's. Evelyn froze. Slowly, Cassandra pulled her arm free, her expression shifting. I've had enough, she said, voice stronger now. Evelyn blinked. Cass, sweetheart, don't, Cassandra snapped. Don't call me that. The power balance shifted in an instant. Cassandra turned to Nathan, her hands trembling slightly, but her voice firm. She came to me weeks ago, she admitted. Before I even told you about Leo. Nathan's jaw clenched. What? Cassandra exhaled sharply. She already knew. She told me that if I reached out to you, she would make my life hell. That she'd make sure I lost my job. That she'd paint me as a gold digger. That she'd ruin any chance I had at raising Leo with you in the picture. Nathan's face darkened. She threatened you? Cassandra swallowed hard. Yes. Evelyn took a step back, her eyes darting wildly. That's not you knew. I cut in, my voice colder than I thought possible. You knew he had a son, and instead of letting him be a father, you decided to play God with his life. Evelyn's lips curled into a sneer. I did what was best for my son. Nathan's face went slack with disbelief. Best for me. His voice cracked. You kept my child from me. Evelyn's nostrils flared. You weren't ready. You would have ruined your life for a woman who was never supposed to be in it. She glared at me. And now you're doing it all over again. Nathan shook his head, looking at her like he didn't recognize her anymore. No, Mom. You ruined everything. Silence. For the first time, true fear flickered across Evelyn's face. Because she had lost. The web of manipulation she had spent so long weaving had unraveled right in front of her. Nathan inhaled sharply. You're done. Evelyn's eyes flashed. Nathan, no, he cut her off. I don't want to hear it. I've spent my whole life letting you control me, and I'm done. He turned to Cassandra. I want to be in Leo's life. If you'll let me. Cassandra hesitated, then nodded. He deserves his father. Evelyn's face twisted with rage. You're making a mistake, she spat. Nathan turned to me, his eyes full of something I hadn't seen before. Clarity. No, he said. For the first time, I'm not. Evelyn opened her mouth, closed it, and then, finally she saw it. She had no more moves left to play. With a furious huff, she turned and stormed past us, her heels clicking sharply against the tile floor. She was done, and we were free. Weeks passed, then months. Evelyn tried, of course. She called, sent messages, even tried to guilt Nathan into seeing her again. But he didn't budge. For the first time in his life, he set boundaries. And I had never been prouder of him. Cassandra and I had an awkward start, but over time, we found a rhythm. She wasn't my enemy. She was just another person Evelyn had tried to control. And Leo? The first time I met him, he looked up at me with the same hazel eyes as his father. He was shy at first, but when Nathan picked him up and spun him around, I saw it, the beginning of something new, something real. Nathan squeezed my hand as we watched Leo run ahead, laughing. I don't deserve you, he murmured. I smiled. You're right, but I love you anyway. He laughed, pulling me close. And for the first time since that disastrous wedding day, I finally felt it. Peace. Because Evelyn had spent her whole life thinking she could control fate. But in the end, she only ensured her own downfall. And we had won.